You're not Davis Bloom. You're not even human.
Doomsday is the son of Zod, who is the mortal enemy of Clark's own father. So he's basically the antithesis of Clark Kent in every way.
All he wants to do is destroy Kryptonians. And when you're the last Kryptonian on Earth, Kal-El, you're out of luck.
Developing Doomsday took a lot out of everybody's day. It took a lot out of Terazakis' day, it took a lot out of our crew's day, it took a lot out of our day. The room just would come to a halt as we all kind of tried to figure this out.
And all I can say is it took a lot of painstaking work on everyone's part to make sure that that character felt as real in our world as possible.
Smallville is all about fate and your destiny, and that's something that we've played with Clark all along. So when we started thinking about a villain this year, we all started thinking about him as he would relate to Clark Kent. And wouldn't it be interesting if their paths started together and then over the course of time split apart, and what would that look like?
But what we were most excited about was adding the human element that, well, not really human, but the very cognizant element that hadn't really been in the mythology of the comics. And I know adding that element scared a lot of people, a lot of the fans at first.
Because I know that there were a few people that were saying, well, why are they even calling it Doomsday? And they just get this dude to, you know, they're gonna call him Doomsday. That doesn't make any sense, and I totally agree. Yeah, why call him Doomsday if you're not gonna do Doomsday?
You know, when I first heard about Doomsday, I thought, you know, they cast a human as Doomsday, obviously, and people were like, what is it? And I was like, well, what are they doing? I didn't quite understand where they're going with it. And then I got in the room and I heard all about it, and I thought it was awesome. Because in the comics, he was introduced, he killed Superman, he didn't have much else when he first showed up.
Nobody just shows up as a killing machine. There's always steps to getting there. And so for us, it really was a blank slate to sort of delve into what would those steps be, how would they look, and how would they look on Smallville.
Well, actually, he started out, I think, as a bartender at first.
We wanted to just find a way.
When we started breaking the season, he was a bartender, ace of clubs, and then the thought came around that what if he's, you know, saving people? What if he's an EMT?
And Sam actually came on thinking he was a bartender, and then found out that he was, in fact, an EMT, because as soon as somebody threw that out, we all latched onto it immediately.
You know, we went to the EMT because we thought, what a great contrast. He's saving people during the day and killing them at night, and he is a character that's constantly looking for redemption and is constantly looking to be saved.
You know, he seems like a nice guy, and then he turns into Doomsday, and so on surface level, you're like, well, how does that have anything to do with the comic book? And in reality, I think that giving him a human persona is cooler than the comic book. It's a cool addition, especially because he's personified somehow, and Doomsday's never really been personified. He's always been this hulking force, which is cool, but if you want to delve into it more, it's great to have that human side, as long as that human side's not really human.
And so that kind of gave birth to what has he been doing all this time, putting him through the opposite situation as Clark, giving him foster homes instead of the perfect loving family, making him realize, instead of finding out he has all these amazing superpowers, that he's actually an amazing killer.
He's a guy that this is his fate. This is the role he gets to play.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're destined and you're fated to be a hero and somebody everybody was going to look up to is not the worst, you know, revelation to have, but we wanted to explore what it would feel like if you discovered you were fated to be the devil.
What did you do? It's not my fault. I blacked out. I couldn't control it. Okay, listen to me. You need to go right now.
I'm not going anywhere. You aren't either until the cops get here.
When I got into Smallville in the writer's room and I learned all about Doomsday, I was really excited. I thought they did an awesome job. enhanced the character greatly. And they talked more about the origin. This is what I responded to, is when they said he's genetically created on Krypton. He's not human.
The whole Davis Bloom thing is just, it's all camouflage. It's like a computer program that has started to believe in itself, and it's just not real at all. It's just all it is it's camouflage. And it's camouflage that has a conscience, but is camouflage nonetheless.
And I thought that added a great emotional layer to Doomsday. That wouldn't be bad in the comic books to do.
Look at me. It's me. It's Davis.
You're not Davis Bloom. You're not even human.
Well, when we first decided to jump into the Doomsday, we were excited and equally absolutely terrified, because to try and create something like that on television, I don't really know that it's been done in that same way before.
It was a pretty big risk to bring Doomsday on, and we knew that. We knew we would eventually have to be showing a monster for the first time in Smallville, which we had never really done.
For a while, we talked about just having Sam Witwer and just some kind of like crazy makeup or something. And at the end of the day, it was like we all felt that the fans would not respond as positively to that as they've responded to the actual creature that looks like the creature from the comic books.
When I was initially called to create the character of Doomsday, it all started off with a conversation with James Marshall, and James said, "Oh, we just want like a little diamond on his cheek," and it was a very glamorous description that he gave.
All of us had a great deal of apprehension when it came to manufacturing this beast.
Something like this normally takes about 5 weeks, and I think on Smallville we had just under 2 weeks to create this character.
Originally, we absolutely thought it would be CGI. 100% thought it would be CGI, that we wouldn't see Doomsday really until the finale.
And then by the time we got a few episodes in, we had to really make that final decision. Do we go CGI or do we do a prosthetic suit?
We knew that we wanted to see interaction between them. We wanted to see them converse, we wanted to see them fall in love, we wanted to see them get angry at each other, and therefore a CGI just wasn't going to give us exactly what we wanted.
The suit went through probably at least 20 different revisions, and Bill Terzakis was very patient with us as we removed strands of hair here and put in one more spike here and made them less symmetrical here. It was a very arduous process.
And it was basically everybody had the same images that I'd emailed to everyone, so everyone was looking off the same images. And then from there we sort of pieced and puzzled the elements that we liked, put it together in one character, and then I was able to provide a concept that everyone was happy with.
Literally every possible detail was discussed, and the photos we got came in fingernails, hands, arms, like it came in piece by piece by piece until we finally got the final rendering.
When we looked at the images, the other very defining image of Doomsday is that he has bony protrusions that come across his eyes.
And the eyes had these cages of bone over top of it, so my concern with that was that if we were to cover the actor's eye with a bone prosthetic, then we wouldn't have access to his contact lenses.
Every once in a while, in this job, you have those days where everybody looks at each other and thinks, is this real? Like, is this really my job? And I think the day that we started talking about how many bony protrusions are too many bony protrusions on Doomsday, that was one of those days.
The bone on his chest was a huge discussion of how much it looked like an insignia, how much we should make it look natural, how much it should look like it just came out of him.
And then what should those bony protrusions look like? Should they look like scales? Should they look like bones? Should they, look like mountains jutting out of him?
The hair was a huge conversation because Doomsday has a tuft of white hair. And every time we did it, it looked like he aged 60 years.
So there were a lot of conversations, but then it looked like they might look like plugs because you're not gonna have a full head of hair.
We did a big tuft and then we did a few little strands and then we got rid of it all together.
The whole process of creating a character such as Doomsday involves, of course, first getting the cast that's going to portray the character. Once cast is chosen, then I put together Photoshop designs of what the character might potentially look like. Once the Photoshop and the concepts have been accepted, then the actor comes to my studio for in this case, full body castings. And then we produce a copy of the actor's head, whether it's in stone or plastic. We produce copies of their head, their hands, their torso, and then from there we start the process of sculpturing. And once the sculptures have been approved, then at that point we create molds for them. And in this case there was multiple molds. I lost track of the amount of molds that we had, whether they were permanent molds for creating the skins or throwaway molds. There was a huge amount of molding that was involved. And once the molds are created, then we inject material, skin, and it took about 22 hours to bake out all the moisture out of the foam rubber that we poured into the mold. Demold it. Once it's demolded, we do a test fitting with Dario. Then we got it painted. After it's painted, then we detail it, do all the final details, and then we ship it out to set. We apply it on set.
We made a conscious choice to build a suit which takes only a couple hours to apply versus 6 hours of individual prosthetic bone spurs and all the makeup it would take to apply each of those things individually. So that was a choice we made to actually build the suit.
The process is quite long, quite detailed, and there's quite a few things that are working against us.
But this is a full-blown bodysuit with prosthetic everything, eyes, you know, hands, the whole deal. And to pull that off on the budgets that you work in television are very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard to do. But that was probably one of the reasons we took the approach on Bride, to have the videographer shoot a lot of footage that would be interspersed throughout the episode. And the thought was early on, while breaking the episode, that by using that device, if we had to, we could hide the beast, you know, hide the shark, as it were, in the video and keep it all handheld and flashes of images, so that if we did not get to a place where, you know, especially the EPs and everyone in post were happy with how the beast was looking on HD, we could always cut to that.
The less you saw of him at the beginning, the better. The more people's imaginations would jump to much more terrifying conclusions. But I think actually Terzakis did a great job, and when you actually see him, he's just as terrifying as anything you could have ever imagined.
What is it?
Okay, this is the first time we're going to see him. Where do we introduce him? And the decision was made to introduce him at the wedding and to make him come in, crash the wedding so that the lights would be dim, and there were a lot of shafts of light as opposed to just a very well lit area. Shafts of light, a lot of shadows, a lot of corners where we could, where it made it much more of a horror story. That allowed us, again, to hide the monster if it didn't work out. It turned out that it helped the mood of the whole piece. It's great to have it that way, but Bill Terzakis did such an amazing job that we were able to get, I mean, there are shots that are this close, you know, it's this close to the camera, and the makeup looks phenomenal.
I don't think we've ever had so many eyes from the network and the studio and every level on a character or a piece of film as we did that first day of dailies on Doomsday.
To see them stay true to it as best it could I think they did a great job is pretty awesome.
And again, Barry did such an amazing job with the lighting. I really love what he did.
When we saw the footage come back, it was like, wow.
The footage that really rocked my world was when, at the very end of Bride, where Chloe's being brought in Doomsday's arms, and you have the snow and the fortress. When I saw that, I just like, this is like, you know, an $80 million feature. I mean, this is really amazing stuff.
It doesn't get better than that. We were very stoked.
It's one of our proudest moments probably on Smallville, seeing that.
I think we found a nice balance between an actual living version of the character and then what also was depicted in the comic books.